Welcome to this edition of On the Sidelines. John Locke with Jonathan Rodriguez, and we are joined by a new co-host here, Zach Sylvia, joining us here this week. He'll be here throughout the summer, hopefully, and definitely going into the fall. Brad McKinnon out this week, but unfortunately for Brad, we'll hold off till later to talk about the Boston Bruins. Let's lead off with the Boston Celtics. They are in round two after defeating the Orlando Magic in the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs, 4-1. It was a very physical series. The Magic really gave the Boston Celtics their best shot, and the Celtics are feeling it going into Game 2 of the Knicks series with Jason Tatum nursing a wrist injury, and of course Jaylen Brown still working his way back from the knee injury. When we talk about the Orlando Magic, the big focal point defensively for the Magic was running the Celtics off the three-point line, playing physical, and really going out there playing with house money. So I think we'll start this week off with, did Orlando provide potential opponents for the Celtics this postseason and going ahead with the perfect blueprint for maybe hanging with the Celtics and giving them a competitive series?
Yeah, I think Orlando they were the number 3 defense for a reason, and I think that kind of showed in the series. But you can kind of go in with a plan and then get knocked in the mouth and kind of have to throw that plan like on the wayside. So I think as much as Orlando had a plan, they still don't have shooters around Powell or Wagner, and nobody that can really create a shot outside of those two. So it makes it very difficult to kind of keep up, because like I said, you can have a plan until you get punched in the mouth, and the Celtics tend to punch you in the mouth. So a plan can be there, but it doesn't always work. So, but Orlando gave it its best shot, and again, they were the number 3 defense for a reason throughout the year. So it showed. But you're going against one of the top offenses in the league. So it still was a gentleman's sweep.
Didn't get punched in the mouth. Got elbowed in the head though in Game 2 at the Garden. What do you think? Is there a perfect blueprint? Like I said, not to beat the Celtics, because I think we can all agree here it's going to be difficult for anybody to beat the Celtics if they're healthy 4 games, in a 7-game series. But did Orlando maybe give teams the plan to hang tough with the Celtics maybe going forward in this postseason?
I mean, yeah, I believe so. While watching the Orlando series, I noticed Orlando took a lot of advantage of their switch defense, especially when they try to get parallel with guys like Pritchard or somebody smaller, and then using their physicality to get into the paint. But I mean, even still, like you said, it was a 4-1 gentleman's sweep. So I mean, it's tough to stop this team because you have to match each player with each player, and I don't think anybody matches up with that Celtics 5.
So I talked about the three-point shooting really being cut down in the postseason compared to the regular season for the Celtics. They made and attempted the most threes in NBA history. But looking back at this first-round series alone, in Game 1, the Celtics shot 43% from distance, 16-37. You go to Game 3, the one game they lost in Orlando, Boston shot 9 of 27 for 33%. Game 4, the C's shot 9 of 31. In Game 5, 13 for 24. But don't forget, in the first half of that Game 5, the Celtics were 0 for 6 from distance. So Orlando kind of had the Celtics shook a little bit, I think, from the three-point line. But I think if you're looking for a perfect game plan, as I said, play physical, run the C's off the three-point line, but also get other players to really take part. The one thing I don't think Orlando had is a Jalen Suggs, who was out for most of the series or most of the season and the series. Also, Mo Wagner. Realistically, this Celtics Magic series should have been a semifinals matchup. The fact that Orlando is a 7 seed just speaks to the fact Banchero was out for most of the season along with Wagner. They both had oblique injuries. The one thing I will say, and the Celtics are getting ready for Game 2 when we're taping this here, so we have no idea how this is going to go. They might shoot 75 threes this time around. But teams need to play a little bit more physical against the Celtics. I'm a Celtics fan. I'm a green teamer. I bleed green and all that. But if teams want to give themselves a significant shot at winning a series or maybe pushing it to 6 or 7, you have to rough these guys up a little bit. I'm not saying drop the elbow, but when you have a Derek White going into the paint or a Jason Tatum or a Jaylen Brown, give a little extra push. You look back at last season, there wasn't a lot of physical play in the postseason for the Celtics. Miami, you had the goon situation with the Heat. Second round, Cleveland, the Cavaliers didn't have anybody in that series, so that was another gentleman's sweep. Indiana kind of pushed them around a little bit. Nesmith played tough, but there wasn't much physicality in that series either, and Dallas really wasn't a challenge as well. So Orlando, I think, played the most physical this Celtics team has seen, at least in 2 postseasons. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, watching game 1 of that Knicks game, you kind of like, I feel like New York's identity is kind of what those like old Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah Bulls were. It's just like really gritty, really like just like punch you in the mouth. We're gonna give you our best shot. They were down 20 at one point, and to come back, win that game in OT, that just says a lot about them. I think I don't believe New York is gonna win the series per se, but they do kind of play that brand of basketball where they are going to rough you up. They kind of like embrace what the city kind of offers in New York. It's just like just rough you up, kind of like punch you in the mouth kind of city. And that's what Tibbs wants his guys to play like. And realistically, New York kind of I think that's why they got all those like pieces of like Big Cat in or Bridges in. Like it was to match up, and it was for this series specifically. So when you see like when people say like you got to kind of match up with the Celtics, like they got all these stars, like New York has all these stars as well, and they got the clutch player of the year in Jalen Brunson. So we'll see.
And OG Anunoby, as I mentioned, having that kind of role player, bench guy, someone besides your top 2 stepping up. OG Anunoby could be someone to look at the rest of this Celtics series. There's been a long time question with Celtics fans. Is it more Jason Tatum? Is it more Jaylen Brown? We're not going to go for the whole career situation here, but just for this series alone, the Celtic Magic first round series, was it more because of what Jason Tatum brought to the table or more of what Jaylen Brown brought to the table, Zach?
Honestly, I think it was Jason Tatum. I mean, you look at the last couple of games in that series, he averaged over 30 points a game. He was pretty much unstoppable, getting to any spot he wanted to, putting up double-doubles night in and night out. So, I mean, just Jason Tatum brings a different level, and when he's on, the rest of the team is on, and it opens the floor for Jaylen Brown to work his magic. I mean, he went 1 for 10 the other night, and obviously Tatum was off in that game too. So if he's not on, I don't think they're, have a really good chance, even though they shot 63s. They only made 15.
Yeah, we have to keep bringing that up. Yeah. What do you think, Tatum or Brown in the series?
I mean, definitely Jason Tatum, but I think people like to like kind of overshadow one for the other or like diminish one for the other, and I think that is the aspect that like a lot of maybe they get sick and tired of, and the big brass at like the Celtics get sick and tired of that narrative. Like just because one person is like Batman and one person is Robin doesn't diminish that like you're gonna need Robin. You can't just do everything yourself all the time. And there's been plenty of times in NBA history, like Kobe needed a Shaq, Kobe needed a Powell, like LeBron needed a D Wade, LeBron needed a Kyrie. Like there's always that like you need your partner, and that's his partner, realistically. And Tatum can have a good series, but then there's going to come that time when like we all see Tatum kind of like he kind of shrinks from time to time at just these little moments, and this year he's been a little bit better with that, but when that happens, typically the person that picks up the slack is Jaylen Brown himself. So I think he had a better series, Tatum, but it's definitely like I don't like to diminish one against the other or like kind of have that argument. I think they both contribute the way they need to contribute to make this team work.
Why do we always have to go with Batman and Robin? Spider-Man, there's a meme. There's 2 Spider-Men pointing at each other. You can have 2 Spider-Men. That's what these guys are. They're Spider-Men looking out in the alley and pointing at each other. To me, I think it is more Tatum for this reason. It goes back to what I saw last season. Jason Tatum is starting to distribute the ball a little better than he has in the past. You go back to 2019, 2020, 2021. Obviously, when he was younger, it was kind of a pass second, shoot first mentality. But as we get deeper into the postseason, the one thing I've noticed about Tatum is he is making an effort more for getting those defensive rebounds. He has the size. I think there are points when the Celtics are in the playoffs, and we can talk a little bit more about this with the next topic here, but if you don't have a Porzingis, if you don't have a Horford, Jason Tatum could give you a couple minutes at the 5. And I think that maybe is something Joe Mazzulla could look at next season if it calls for that. But Jaylen Brown, he is very crucial because you look at what the Celtics did in Game 2. If you didn't have Jaylen Brown, you were porked in that Game 2. But the fact he was there to kind of keep the bus on the road and make sure everyone was kind of in their place, that's really important. And that's why I think these two work so well together. And there's always been this wedge that the media tries to put between Tatum and Brown for some reason, but these two, over their time with the Celtics, have gotten over it, which I think is great to see because you don't see that with a lot of superstars, I think, today. I don't think Anthony Edwards is going to go out there and play well with another player to the level of Anthony Edwards, as we saw. I think he shot, 0 for 15 in Game 1 or something like that, but there's a lot of players with this NBA mentality of me first, I want all the recognition. These two, they're not about that life as far as we know right now. There was quite the Shams bomb dropped on the Pat McAfee show with his new decor of a wrestling ring on his show, but Shams did say that the NBA teams are preparing for the Celtics this offseason to potentially make some roster moves because the salary cap for the C's is going to reach an astronomical number when you figure in the luxury tax and the extensions kicking in. We don't want to think about it, but facts are facts. The Celtics are going to have a pricey tab coming up. Could we see some significant changes, Jonathan? We'll start off with you here. With the Celtics making roster changes in September or October where maybe the top 6 isn't intact by the time we get to opening night?
Yeah, I thought the team wasn't going to be the same going into next year. Again, it goes off of that luxury tax, and just even if they bring a championship this year, I think the aspect of paying that, they're going to want to find a way to kind of keep the nucleus intact, like Golden State did all those years ago, and then just kind of sign these veteran minimum contracts all around the board. So I can see a world where Jrue Holiday isn't there, or Kristaps Porzingis, or even both of them. It's kind of like the nature of the beast. You can't keep something this expensive together for so long because everybody does want to get paid eventually. So you're gonna have to move pieces to kind of keep, again, the Tatum and Brown together, and then just build around them and get those veterans in that will contribute at that high level, but are only requiring that veteran minimum so you can stay at a reasonable price for this team.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the one name that you mentioned that we have to probably look out for that might not be on this team next year is Jrue Holiday. He is an older guy, but yeah, he's a big contributing factor. But just his age is obviously a concern there, and that luxury tax added on with this contract, it's not really something you're going to be looking for, and possibly could move on from him this offseason.
So next season, Holiday is projected to make just over $32 million. The season after that, just under $35 million, and in 27-28, he's projected to make $37 million. I think this postseason is interesting for the Celtics because the Orlando series, they didn't have Jrue Holiday. They squeaked through. It wasn't easy, but they got through without Jrue Holiday. So now, could the front office be looking at this and say, you know what, Jrue Holiday, we really like having someone with that presence, that veteran leadership on our team, but financially, if we want to have a Brown and a Tatum and a Porzingis kind of pulling up the rear with those deep threes, we're going to have to get rid of somebody, and unfortunately, it may have to be a Jrue Holiday, because if you have Peyton Pritchard and he can kind of step up his defense a little bit more, I think you could, down the road, plug him into the starting point guard role. And don't forget, as far as bench depth goes, when it comes to shooting the threes or kind of being a on-ball defender, you have a Sam Hauser, you have a Drew Peterson. They're slowly coming into their own, but I think the Celtics do have options. So I think if you're going to get rid of anybody on this team, unfortunately, it may have to be a Jrue Holiday this off season. But I also don't know, as far as the apron situation goes, how this plays into it, because the Celtics are way into the second apron of the NBA, which, as far as I know, that means your draft picks are frozen. You can't really trade any players unless it's specifically on the dollar. I actually printed out here some of the penalties. So second apron penalties, which applies to the Celtics. Teams don't have access to the taxpayer mid-level exception. Teams cannot use trade exceptions created when combining the salaries of multiple players. Teams cannot use trade exceptions from any prior year. Teams lose the ability to trade first-round picks that are 7 years in the future. If teams remain in the second apron for any 3 years in a 5-year period, their upcoming first-round draft pick is automatically moved to the end of the first round. So, again, the Celtics are going with the full mentality of championship now, screw the future. That's great. Unfortunately, you have new ownership coming in with Bill Chisholm. Is Bill Chisholm going to go ahead and put a price tag of $500 million on the table right from jump? I have a hard time believing that, which is why I think someone like a Jrue Holiday could be gone, or, I hate to say it, but I could see a Kristaps Porzingis being gone as well. I think it comes down to those two, Porzingis or Holiday. We'll take a quick break here on the show. When we come back, the draft has come and gone. The New England Patriots actually did what they were supposed to. They had needs, they got players. We'll talk more after the break.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies. Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
What to expect when you're expecting a teenager.
Today we're talking about how to wake up your teen, and this works literally every time.
Give kisses. Give kisses. You heard how loud
I heard. It wasn't you. It was the...
Is that bacon?
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
The New England Patriots actually made some great selections. Weird to say, actually, for the Patriots, given their draft history. But they went out and drafted Will Campbell with their first selection in the 2025 NFL Draft, 4th overall. Campbell, the offensive tackle from LSU. But in the second round, I think that's when things got interesting, guys, because with their first second-round pick, the 38th overall, they took Trayvon Henderson from Ohio State. And in the third round, they took Kyle Williams, wide receiver from Washington State, and Jared Wilson, a center from Georgia. When it comes to grading the draft, I'd actually give the New England Patriots an A-, B+. The reason that I would go down a little bit is because I'm still not sold on Will Campbell. The arm situation is still a little weird to me. I did watch some of his tape, though, after he got drafted. It made me feel a little better, but still, I think you could have made a move to go out there and get an Abdul Carter, really beef up that defense. So I don't know what you guys feel. We'll start off with Jonathan.
Yeah, the draft I gave an A. I thought they did very well in addressing the clear need of offense. They got the number 1 graded center. They got, in what most people were saying, the number 1 graded lineman. And then I thought Henderson was a home run hit.
Steal almost.
Yeah, like everyone was like just boasting about his like pass protection and things of that nature, and the way he runs the ball. He's a freak athlete, in my opinion. And then the Kyle Williams pick was very underrated. In the third, I was watching some of his tape, and he looks great. And I especially watched that tape against him and Hunter, and watching that gave me it brought a smile to my face. So I wasn't too upset about the Campbell pick. If one of the defensive guys, either Hunter or Carter, were there, of course I would want one of them over him. I thought they were generational talents, so of course I would want him. But I think his energy, his leadership, and I do feel like he's going to bring a spark to this offensive line that probably hasn't been there in a very long time. So I do think he was the right pick there. Leadership felt good about him. Vrabel felt really good about him, was just boasting about his character and his work ethic and things of that nature. And then his interview on the stage was it went viral for the reason that I think we all thought. He seemed emotional, and he seemed like he really wanted to be in New England, and he was willing to die for Drake May. So I think our draft went very, very well. They did what they needed to do last year, and they did it this year. So I'm glad we got the picks we did. And I do think we had the second easiest schedules this year. So I do think we're gonna have more wins than last year. I'm not willing
That's
to
not
say.
really hard to do.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah.
You should
either,
have more than
we have suck, 4 wins, or actually being a representable football team.
Yeah.
Not hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, I give this draft an A. Like I love the Will Campbell pick. I know not many people do, and with the short arms thing, I don't really think that's as big as the thing as people need to make out. I mean, Vidarian Lowe's got 35-inch arms, and he's not the greatest lineman in the world. But after the interview, I fell more in love with it. But the pick I loved the most was the Henderson pick. I watched him, especially him beating my Oregon Ducks in the Rose Bowl and demolishing them. But it's just this draft brought something to the Patriots we haven't seen in a while, and that's explosiveness. Patriots haven't had an explosive offensive weapon in a long time. And especially with Henderson and Williams, those two guys can catch the ball and just go. It's just one cut and gone. But yeah, I'm in love. I love the picks.
I will say it's really good to have veterans in there now that, like, I'm not saying Stevenson is like what he's paid to be. He's paid as a top 10 running back, and I don't think he is a top 10 running back. But I think him and Henderson are going to be a great 1-2 duo. Mm-hmm. Just like I think Kyle Williams, having Stephon Diggs, whether it's leadership, I still think Diggs has something. Whether it's a year of having it or 2 years of having it, I still think he has something. So having him in that room with the rest of these receivers, I feel like is going to be contagious. So I like these picks to be very, they're going to be complimentary of what they have in their rooms as well. So I think it's going to be great to see these guys mid-season and seeing what they're really going to do.
I was doing some research before the show. Trayvon Henderson, listen to these stats for 2024. As a running back, 144 carries, just over 1,000 yards rushing, averaging 7 yards a carry and 10 touchdowns. As a wide receiver, he had 27 receptions for 284 yards, just under 11 yards per reception, and a touchdown. So what that screams out to me, maybe you have a potential James White type of tool, which I think is going to help out the running game, because if you have a 2-back system, you bring in Stevenson on your 3rd and short situation, which is where I think he is going to shine. You can use a Henderson for 2nd down, pick up some good yardage and line yourself up for some good 3rd and short situations and get that offense on the field and keep them on the field, because that was their biggest issue, I think, last year. The defense was pretty good, but the issue is when they're on the field for 45 minutes out of a 60-minute football game, they're going to get tired in the 4th quarter and they're going to get shredded, which is not the recipe for a good football team.
Yep.
And then Kyle Williams, 70 receptions, just under 1,200 yards, and 14 touchdowns, all career highs. You mentioned the wide receiver room for the Patriots. How about this? Stephon Diggs, Pop Douglas, Kyle Williams, Mac Hollins, and Kendrick Bourne. To me, that may be a top 2 wide receiving room, I think, in the AFC East.
Yeah, and I mean, you didn't even mention the 2 draft picks from last year, too. So, because I do think they're going to get significantly better on that end, like those 2 guys, like Polk and Baker. I'm trying to think of all the rooms right now. I will not say top 2 because they're
Well, the Jets are a dumpster fire.
They
the
are.
The Dolphins, they're not going to have Tyreek Hill. He's going to be gone.
And then the Bills.
See, I don't think he's going to be gone. I still think he wants to be in Miami. The Bills kind of they're reminding me of what we used to do with just placing receivers in and just seeing if it works, because your quarterback is just ridiculously good. I think Shakir is really good. And I think Coleman is really good as well. I mean, they still have some things to figure out on that offensive end. I'm very afraid to say that we have a top 2 room. I've had horror stories with the wide receivers in New England. The only one I've ever liked outside of the greatest of all time, Randy Moss and things of that nature, or Gronks, or just Julian Edelman. I don't think we've ever drafted somebody that I was wow, I'm so glad we got them. They're significantly great.
N'Keal Harry. Come on, the best receiving pick Bill Belichick ever made.
Yeah, with A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf still on the board.
Yeah, details. We may get A.J. Brown back. All right, so these four over here. Basically, the brain trust for the 2025 NFL Draft, kind of a new endeavor here. Head coach Mike Vrabel, you have Ryan Cowden, Robert Kraft, really obviously calling all the big shots, and then you have Elliott Wolf on the side. I was kind of surprised to see how smoothly things actually ran. We didn't see a lot of trading for picks in 2074. We saw the Patriots maybe trading back and getting a player they wanted that they think would drop down, but they actually got players that addressed the needs, where you have, back in the Belichick days, it was Bill getting defensive guys or Bill getting linemen that aren't going to pan out, but it's better to have a lot of something than have a few of something. Mm-hmm. When it comes to how these four actually handled things in this draft, I'm kind of pleasantly surprised. Zach, I don't know how you feel.
I mean, honestly, especially in those later round picks with the guys like Joshua Farmer and Braden Swinson, I think those are home run hits. Those are steals. And obviously looking at these four guys, I'd say you definitely trust the process. You're building up from a point where you want to surround Drake May with talent, but you also want to give him talent on the defensive end where he can get the ball more and have more time on the field. But, yeah.
It's a Vrabel draft. I mean, it very much showed that. It showed that he was in charge. I felt like last year was just such a weird, just
clown show.
Besides our first round pick, Drake hit, and I don't think a lot of people thought he was going to hit. It was just it was, oh my God, I don't even have words for it. It was actually ridiculous. So just having, and this is no offense to them, but to him, but having grown men in the room to just kind of be like, hey, we know how to evaluate talent. And I'm not saying that in the Tennessee Titan era of them, they were drafting great players either. I remember a whole bunch of linemen that they were taking that kind of didn't pan out and things of that nature. But you did see a team with Ryan Tannehill kind of overachieve. I forgot what year that was. I think that was 19, where they were the number one seed, and that was drafting. That was just game scheming and things of that nature. So I do think this draft was very much like Vrabel. He brought in his guy, and I think he has an eye for just drafting talent and things of that nature, just from his own playing career and how he coaches. You see him putting pads on and getting out there with the linemen and doing his thing. So I do think he had his handprint all over this, and it was very much a good fresh breath air. Good, whatever you want to say about it, but it was a good draft for us.
Sigh
and you could
relief.
tell, yeah, sigh of relief for sure.
I mean, you can tell Elliott Wolf how you feel. He's right over your shoulder, looking.
I just find I don't want to say annoying because that's a very harsh word, but the way he interviews, him and I don't even remember our coach's name from last year.
Gerard Mayo. And so the Patriots barely remember who coached either.
Yeah, Mayo and him last year were just, I could not take them doing interviews because they were just so nonchalant and then didn't answer things. And when they did answer things, it was just so weird. It was just oh my God, it was like kids at the wheel. Oh.
All right, we will take a break here. When we come back, we'll have overtime. And the Patriots drafting wasn't the only story when it comes to the NFL draft. Obviously, there was one player in particular that got quite a few headlines. We'll talk about Sanders' saga coming up in On the Sidelines overtime. Plus, the Boston Red Sox are continuing to bite the big one to kick off the 2025 season. And it's On the Sidelines. We have a new co-host. We have to have a game. We'll have that coming up on the Sidelines overtime after this.
If you don't fix them, sparks from dragging tow chains could cause a wildfire, and that could be scary.
Hi, Smokey.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
On the Sidelines overtime coming at you. John Locke, Jonathan Rodriguez, our new co-host, Zach Sylvia joining us. And we talked about the New England Patriots in the draft in the first part of the show. Let's talk about the other big story from draft weekend. That is Shedeur Sanders here, the quarterback formerly of the Colorado Buffaloes, now the Cleveland Browns, getting drafted all the way down in the hundreds when he was expected to be a top 5, top 10 quarterback. Now, that wasn't the whole story. The big issue out of this is the fact he was prank called apparently from another team's assistant coach's son's phone. So Atlanta Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich apologized publicly last week for the leak of Shedeur Sanders' private phone number and his son using it to prank call the quarterback during the NFL draft. Ulbrich said, quote, "My actions of not protecting confidential data were inexcusable. My son's actions were absolutely inexcusable, and for that we are both deeply sorry." The NFL did fine the Falcons $250,000 and Ulbrich himself $100,000. Shedeur Sanders kind of just brushed it off his shoulders, saying, he just accepted it, whatever. But this maybe brings up a bigger issue here, because you're talking about NFL prospect here, a very high caliber NFL prospect that kind of goes beyond the football field. Obviously, we know who his father is, but what are we doing having these NFL prospects' phone numbers just kind of thrown around here? That may be the bigger issue here, the fact that the coaching staffs of other teams got this player's phone number. It used to be the owner gets the phone number, maybe the head coach gets the phone number, and that's it. Now, in this age here, we can access anything we want if you have the right stuff, but this is a big issue, I think, if you're the NFL, especially when you're going into the future with other NFL draft prospects that basically have brands like Shedeur Sanders did with his dad.
Yeah, I think I don't think it's as big of an issue, but I do think the NFL will treat it as a big issue in the way of like, hey, we're going to limit the people that have this phone number now. Regarding the defensive coordinator and his son, I saw a report that he cost his dad 1/8 of his salary. And let me just say that kid has probably never been punched in the mouth, and he probably needs to be punched in the mouth. Because if you cost your dad 1/8 of his salary because you thought it was funny to just like kind of, let's do this and like maybe risk my dad's career. Like, you don't know what that could have done to your dad. Mm-hmm. And I think that just shows immaturity. And this guy's in college. Are you kidding me? So you cost your dad 1/8 of his salary, maybe his job, and like that's embarrassment. So I think the bigger, for me, why I don't think it's such a big issue is I feel like as a family, typically, like if your dad or your whoever in the family is like in part of the NFL and you know that, like you're treating them, not saying like you're treating them differently, but like, hey, like dad has work to do or mom has work to do or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not going to jeopardize my mom's career by being a little kid, especially somebody that's either in the range of 18 to 21 years old and being like, oh yeah, I think it's a great idea to go through my dad's computer, grab his cell phone number, and then call this person. Like, it just shows immaturity and things of that nature. I don't think a normal person, like, I wouldn't do that. If my dad was an NFL coach and he had his stuff laying around, that's the last thing I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be like, hey, Dad, yeah, like, are we drafting Shedeur maybe? Like, just joking around with him or something like that. But I'm not grabbing this guy's number and thinking it's okay to just, like, prank call him and then film it. That's the craziest part of all of it, is, like, you film it and then post it on the internet thinking, like, it's a funny joke, thinking your dad would get no repercussions from it. That's wild to me.
And think about what happens if Ulbrich goes out there, interviews for another coaching position, or dare I say even a head coaching position. And do I think this is the one thing that's going to stop a team from hiring him? No. But the fact that you were stupid enough to kind of share your phone number or share this kid's phone number with your own son and just kind of have this blow up, and your name's always going to be associated with this saga. And that's a big issue that I think Ulbrich's going to have to carry with him as he goes forward.
Yeah, I'll just say for his son and that kid's future, it's ruined pretty much. After posting that on the internet, any opportunities you have in the future are gone. But it's as he said, it's idiotic. There's no point in doing it. You know this is a big night for him, and you know he's doing all these things, trying to get his name out, trying to be drafted by a team, and doing that it just hurts. But I saw some other reports as well. Sanders wasn't the only one. I'm pretty sure something happened with Abdul Carter. I'm pretty sure as well as Tyler Warren.
Mason Graham, I think.
Mason Graham as well. So it's not just these guys. It's just the biggest one for the biggest name that was talked about during the draft.
And to anyone that thinks it's funny, it's not. I mean, how would you feel if you went and got to the apex of your career, be it communications, teaching, science, research, whatever it is? You get to the apex, you're waiting for that one phone call, you get a phone call, and it's from some idiot who works probably at some convenience store down the street that's going to not have a career. Mm-hmm. I mean, what's that going to do? Because you're in a bad mood, and then you get a phone call, and it actually does end up being the apex of your career, and you're questioning the validity of it.
I think what makes this even worse is that, like, he was clearly the news of the draft, outside of, like, maybe the top 10 picks.
Yeah.
He was the news of the draft, and everybody knew that. Especially when that first day ended, he wasn't drafted. It was the talk of the town. Like, even when he got drafted, at that moment, he was the news for another, I would say, 2 hours. Mind you, there was still picks going on. So for that kid to do that was just, like, embarrassing. Like, because you knew what he was going through, and
he bought a burner phone to try and make sure this didn't happen.
Yeah, and I just think the aspect of, like, whether he didn't get picked for, like, football-related reasons or not, like, it's all up for debate at that point. But he was still, you could tell he wasn't. That first night he gave a speech to people that were closest to him, and you could tell, like, you know, he wasn't expecting not to get picked, but he was still in great spirits. Still seemed like he was, like, wanting to, like, put himself out there and things of that nature, and it. Just human nature is a thing, man. It's hard to see sometimes.
So let's talk about that a little bit more, because Sanders goes at pick, was it 144 to the Cleveland Browns. He was projected to be a top 15 pick, maybe even a top 5 pick. The Cleveland Browns selected so many players ahead of Shedeur Sanders. I think they even took a quarterback ahead of Shedeur Sanders. How much of the fact Shedeur Sanders got drafted at 144 is based on his playing ability in college, and how much of it is based on his last name and who his father is?
Well, I think for one, they took Dylan Gabriel ahead of him, I believe, at the 3rd round, and then they took him in the 5th. I believe that wasn't the ownership's plan. I think they wanted Gabriel from the start because they knew he was there. The value was there in the 3rd round. You get that quarterback. But the Sanders pick, I think, is all ownership right there. If you saw the video of them reacting to the Sanders pick, nobody in that room looked happy at all. And it's not really who they wanted. It's all ownership at that point.
Would you be happy going to Cleveland?
No. No.
See, I don't take it as much as, like, an ownership pick. I kind of believe what they said. People addressed that rumor about, like, them not looking happy. I do think it's just the nature of, like, being there for 3 days and kind of sitting in a room and doing that for essentially, like, 72 hours. I do think he was too brash and too arrogant. But again, we've seen things where, like, there's other players that are brash and arrogant and they go in the 1st round, aka Johnny Manziel. So, and I'm not comparing talent or anything like that, but I do think him and his dad being like, hey, we're going to dictate where we go, and kind of coming from that, like, that stance of, like, oh, we run the show kind of thing. I think the NFL tried to humble him and be like, hey, like, you're not going to come into these meetings, like, arrogant and acting like you don't want to be here and things of that nature. Like, this at the end of the day is a business, and yeah, your last name is going to garner business for us, but at the end of the day, you'll be here and then you'll also be gone. So it won't. It's nothing to us. We're the bigger business here.
When players are drafted, who usually makes the calls? Ownership, a general manager, maybe president of player personnel, and a coach. Deion Sanders has been rumored to be a head coach in the league, maybe be a guy that calls the shots. I wonder, were teams afraid of drafting Shedeur Sanders simply for the fact Deion Sanders was going to be a PR nightmare as far as people always asking the job security of the current coach because Sanders is always in waiting. Could Sanders try and weasel it or try and, finagle his way into a football team? That's a possibility. And when it comes to the playing aspect of Shedeur Sanders, I think a lot of teams were wondering, was Colorado fairly successful because of Sanders or because Sanders had someone like Travis Hunter to throw to? And I think that's kind of a tough line of delineation because let's say Sanders maybe stays at Jackson State and he just takes off and he's always in the Player of the Year conversations. I think Sanders very easily could have gone as a top 5 pick. But teams are looking at Sanders going, we're kind of thrown in there because you're the coach's kid. You can make of that what you want. We don't know if the team is successful because of you or Travis Hunter. And also, we're just not exactly sold as far as how you are off the football field in team meetings because there was talk that, in the draft combine interviews, he approached teams and said, all right, this is what I want from you guys. I want this, I'm not doing this. And that's not how you apply for a job. So it's very likely Sanders did rub people the wrong way on the field and off the field.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if you guys saw something to the effect of he had the highest completion percentage in college football. So that was another aspect. And then his O-line was never good. So at the end of the day, yeah, you can have Travis Hunter, but you're still going to need somebody that can get you that ball accurately and not be running for his life because at the end of the day, the past 2 years, I think it was a little better last year, but past 2 years, that O-line was still pretty atrocious. And he was running for his life, still being accurate, still he got their record from 4 wins to 8 wins last year, 8 or 9 wins. So at the end of the day, he's still making that team better. I don't think it could have been a one-person show, especially at the wide receiver or DB position, even though, yeah, they're going to affect the game in some way. I think at the end of the day, a quarterback affects the game the most, and he affected the game the most. He was very accurate with that ball. Again, do I think he was arrogant and did he come off and rub people the wrong way? Absolutely. I think the way his dad was saying, and I agree, having those whispers in your organization of hey, if we don't do good this year, we might have Deion Sanders come in and kind of that's annoying. But I've also heard I guess you hear from both sides because Deion's also said he doesn't want to coach the NFL. How true that is, we never know. The money there is different. Mm-hmm. The exposure there is different, but at the end of the day, it's he also did say he didn't want to be there. So you don't know what to believe, and you just give the kid a chance. And if he proves us wrong, he proves us wrong, and hopefully he proves everybody wrong. And he's going to make people pay, and I think he's going to make people pay. And it's going to come from a standpoint of he's going to take over those Cleveland quarterback reps, and when it's time to pay him, he's giving nobody a discount.
So over/under for touchdowns when the Browns play the Falcons, 5.5 for Shedeur Sanders. I can see him lighting up the Falcons the first time.
I would want to. Yeah. I would want to.
All right. So it's kind of interesting having Zach here because he actually took part in our next topic. He went to Fenway Park last night, braved the elements in a 6-1 debacle, was it? Yes. It was a nightmare. But nonetheless, the Boston Red Sox are about a quarter of the way through the 2025 season. And the mediocre ball club is currently 18-19 as of this taping. And I feel like there's a lot more questions now than we had at the start of the season. So we'll just start off with a quick 500-foot view of this baseball team, Jonathan. What do you make of what the Red Sox are about a quarter of the way through? To me, the highlight is the Wally helmet they have there on the screen.
Yeah, I saw that. I went to opening day at Fenway. And I saw that for the first time. I thought that was a cool aspect of it, but I've seen nothing else that's really kind of given me anything to be excited about. I think we have bats and things of that nature, but pitching still seems off. First base is going to be a question mark now because of the Casas injury, and it's such a weird team right now. It's very middle of the pack. I wasn't expecting this at all. I did say in the beginning of the season, I did think we were going to make a wild card spot, but I did also think pitching would be a problem. And I think that's where we're like very much lacking at right now. And then there's the uncertainty of like bringing Roman Anthony up, and I think there's just so many like questions right now, and you never like questions in your ball club when you're at this like middle of the pack kind of area. So yeah.
I mean, especially watching last night, it was the lack of offense. Honestly, the pitching was fine. I mean, Texas, their bats were on fire. They were swinging and they were hitting everything into pretty much the outfield the entire time. But it's just Duran last night went 0 for 4. A lot of these guys maybe got one hit. I don't think I saw a single Red Sox with 2 hits the entire game. But that's been the story the last couple of seasons. They have these really good games, and then the next game they kind of wipe out. Mm-hmm. And it's just they're a middle of the pack team, and that's what they've been for the last couple of years.
I think the interesting thing is the fact that, given the fact they're 18-19 through the first quarter-ish part of the season, they're still about, 2.5, 3.5 games back of first place in the AL East. There's still obviously a lot of time, but still, you have Crochet getting signed to a long-term extension. You have Bregman coming on to the ball club. You have Bayo coming back from injury. You thought that, or at least I did, that this ball club would at least have a little bit of giddy up in a step. Mm-hmm. Right now, it's kind of just like watching a repeat of last year, just with different characters. Garrett Crochet, he does lead the team with 49 innings, 3 wins, 56 strikeouts, 20 walks. But kind of an interesting thing to note after his last start, he said that the velocity in a lot of his pitches were down about 2 to 3 miles. And if you're already dealing with a pitcher losing velocity of about 2 to 3 miles, 5 years into his career, what's that going to say by the time we get to year 2 or 3 in this extension? To me, that's the one thing I'm going to be watching through the rest of the year. That and the bullpen usage, which we talked about at the beginning of the season. Those are the 2 focal points, I think, as far as pitching goes, to really watch out for. Yeah. And then when we talk about Roman Anthony and Marcelo Mayer, when do you pull the trigger on maybe that call-up or 2?
I believe at this point in time, I think it may be still be a little early, but I think if they continue to go in this back and forth, they'll win a game, they'll lose a couple, and then they'll win a couple again. If it's just that back and forth thing at 500, I think those 2 guys are way too talented to be in AAA right now. You need to bring those guys up because they can obviously swing the bat. Defensively, they're very good. If you just need to find a point in time where you have to keep winning games consistently and stay above that 500 mark.
All right, and to me, just to kind of get my 2 cents on this, I think ownership is going to wait until August or September so you get that extra year of control, which I think is what a lot of teams are going to do because there's this labor stoppage that could be happening in the next year or so. So if that's the case, you hold on to a player like a Roman Anthony and a Mayer, and that could help you out in the long-term future of this ball club. We will take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll introduce Zach to the fun-filled games that is On the Sidelines Overtime. It's time to play the NFL Draft, the numbers game, after this.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
We have reached personally my favorite part of the show when I get to kind of put on my game maker's hat and ask a bunch of tough questions. Some make sense, some don't. But given the fact the NFL draft just happened, we're going to play a little draft numbers game. So what I have here is 4 questions, multiple choice, regarding this year's draft. Obviously, you give me the letter of choice here, and we'll see if you're right or wrong. Given the fact I'm talking to 2 students at Bridgewater State that just came off of exams, this could go great or a disaster. So let's see how this goes. First up, the SEC led all of the FBS conferences and players drafted to the NFL. How many players were drafted throughout the NFL draft weekend? A, 59, B, 71, C, 79, or D, 91 players?
Let's say, I think it was B. It was 71.
C.
B and C. The answer is A, 79 player. Or excuse no, answer is C. So you said C, right?
Yes.
Typo. So the game maker actually made a mistake. So I'm wrong. You're right. 15 players actually went in the first round from the SEC. Wow. So really impressive. Oh, they also control about 75 teams. Next up, how many quarterbacks were selected in the NFL draft? A7, B14, C21, or D25 quarterbacks selected in the draft overall? 7 rounds.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, can you repeat the multiple choice?
How many
please?
quarterbacks were selected in the draft? A7, B14, C21, or D25 quarterbacks?
A.
I think it's A.
Answer is B, 14. Cam Ward
14 quarterbacks?
in the NFL draft. Cam Ward, Jackson Dart taken 9th, Tyler Shao drafted 40th, Jalen Milroe 92nd, Dylan Gabriel, we talked about him, 94th. That Sanders kid, 144th. Kyle McCord, 181st. Will Howard.
I don't know why I said 7.
Riley
Jesus,
Leonard,
God
Graham
almighty.
Mertz, Tommy Mellott, Cam Miller, Curtis Rourke, and Quinn Ewers. Next up,
Right, Ewers went to the Dolphins.
which position saw the most players drafted in the first round? A, quarterback, B, linebacker, C, offensive tackle, or D, running back?
One more time on the multiple choice.
A, quarterback, B, linebacker, C, offensive tackle, or D, running back?
I'm going to go
Tackle.
All right, tackle is the right answer. C, it's actually a tie because there are also 5 defensive tackles taken in the first round. And finally, the Patriots had the last overall selection in this year's NFL Draft, a.k.a. Mr. Irrelevant. What number was Kobe Minor, the player selected at that spot, taken? A, 257, B, 256, C, 260, or D, 266?
257.
No, it's the same thing.
All right, A is correct, 257. Look at this. We see you guys are all ready now that you had your exams at BSU.
Yeah.
You came here, played a stupid game. Now you can go.
The numbers are in there.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right, so we thank you so much for watching this edition of On the Sidelines. Thanks to Zach for helping out with the show. Hopefully you'll come back and join the chaos and the madness. Maybe we'll have Brad actually show up for a show or two. And we'll talk to you next time.